So we are in. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 5 of Undead Unluck. And yeah, we did it. Last episode, Andy and Fuko, mostly Andy, I guess, but kind of working together, beat Gina. And she went out in the most peaceful, caring way possible thanks to Andy, which was just really wholesome and nice to see. Um, it really sold me a lot on this series that I was already sold on, like pretty heavily. But that did a lot of heavy lifting and made me just really respect this series that much more. It shows a great maturity and respect for the characters that you don't see enough of, you know? To have who is clearly an antagonist, an enemy who needed to be killed, given such a respectful death, showing that she wasn't this bad guy, but was doing things because of her own fears and insecurities. And that in the end, she gets to pass away with having those fears qualmed by Andy is just, it's so sweet. It's so unbelievably sweet. um, but with her being taken out and the other seats having already been opened before, that means Fuko and Andy both have a spot on the table. There's only 10 spots available, and now 2 of them are open. And they already are getting a recommendation, so they're golden, right? The one thing I'm wondering about, though, still, is that Gina, like, even mentioned last episode that they were there for a reason, that she was there in Russia to, search for another negator. So, who else is around? There's got to be another negator somewhere in the area, right? And someone who's not working as part of this group, someone that they were there to handle. And then there's still the entire thing about Andy wanting to, get the food taken care of for Fuko and everything with his chef friend. A lot of questions that I'm not sure if we're going to touch on. I'm interested to see, though. Either way, I say we just get this going and see what this episode has in store. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. We are here. We have arrived at the Union, and yeah, it is pretty nifty, if I do say so myself. We get to meet the other members of the round table, and although I am not going to remember their names this quickly, yeah, I can't remember their names or all their powers. We'll get to know them more as time goes on, of course. We have the leader, who is the girl who wears the helmet in the opening. She was one I was most wondering about. Because, like, her part in the opening, as well as her design, just seemed really, like, notable. And so I wanted to, like, really know about her more than any of the others. But we do get to see all of them. And they all seem to have very different personalities. Like, there's the one girl in the giant, like, robot suit or whatnot. Unless that's just her body because of her power. I don't know. But she appeared to be really upset about Gina's death, and it seemed like it came around to her maybe being friends with Gina. Because it's very clear, these negators here can be friends with each other and everything. Like, yeah, to a degree, they seem to be competing with each other over, like, points and stuff and rankings. But it's clear, though, that they can still be on really good terms. And so she seemed to, like, maybe be friends with Gina. But at the same time, it's made very clear in this episode that Gina's death was a mercy to her. There's the part at the beginning before the Union picks them up where it's going on about how Gina's passing was saving her from a life in a position that was making her depressed and putting her in pain. And this is kind of what I talked about last episode and even in the pre-thoughts. That she was finally given peace. She was allowed to pass away happy. And it really goes to show you that you really can't judge a book by its cover with this series. And I think that's I think that's going to be a major factor of this show. That characters are not always going to be what they seem, and that you really have to give them a chance to truly shine to understand them. Characters like Andy and Gina are made better once you start to learn more about them, once you start to see them in their, like for who they are. And Fuko, meanwhile, is all about her potential. She's so down on herself because of past incidents involving her powers that she was full-on depressed and suicidal at the start of this. And her potential is her biggest key factor here. Andy sees it, but she can't. And that's what's going to change her and allow her to become more than she is. Allow her to become someone truly special. And we're seeing that with a lot of these characters. Like, even with this, with Mui, I think her name was, we see that Shen saved her life. We find out that, like, Shen saved her life at some point, and that she not just values him, but is so dedicated to him that even the thought of being forced to hurt him by these clothes, these living clothes, like, is the worst possible thing for her. And he understands this enough to where his response is to like calm her down, tell her it's okay, give her head pats and everything, and which, by the way, is just super fucking adorable. I want a partner who gives me head pats. She genuinely loves him. It's true love, and it's not necessarily romantic love, though I could see that being the case still. But she genuinely loves him on just such a deep personal level because of, again, she owes her life to him. And he shows how kind and gentle he is with her. And I love that. I love that we're seeing these sides to these characters. But we also, at the same time, in this same episode, we see that Shen is also very competitive. He's willing to fight it out with Andy again, and he's even, like, challenging him straight to his face and all. And it's like, that's really cool. We get to see the different sides to these characters. They feel human. And that's a big point, too, that this episode makes. Fuko herself tells them that. It's like, we have all these powers, but we're still people. And everything. It's like, you're really going to hunt us down when we're just regular people like this outside of these powers? And it's like, yeah, they're all people. They're all human. And the leader, the number one spot, I guess. Right now, it seems, and this might be a misdirect. We might be being led down a lie here. But right now, it seems like she has good intent. Like, genuinely, dog might start barking, by the way. She has good intent and she's trying to help. She wants to protect the world. And the only way to do so is by doing this. At least the only way she can see to do so. Because with these different artifacts that are here, we don't know the origin of these artifacts yet. I don't know if they're alien, because again, it specifically mentioned the first artifact found on Earth. So which means it kind of implies that they're not from Earth, just with the wording there. Which makes me think either alien of some sort, demon in origin. Honestly, the book Apocalypse, I think its name was, kind of looks like it could be demonic. I made the Necronomicon joke. Something like that. And I'm very interested to find out about that. But they're given these missions, and the missions give off these rewards if you complete them all, or just complete each one. Each one has its own reward by a certain time limit. In this one, it's like they have 10 days, I believe it said, to complete all 6. And the other guy was even kind of saying that they're unreasonable, because each mission requires a certain amount of people, and they don't have enough people. But if all the missions aren't completed, it comes with a drawback. And it seems like all of these different things that we just like know for being on Earth, stuff like sickness and death and whatnot, are like drawbacks that have happened. They use another word for it. My mind's just blanking on what it was. But it's like all of this stuff that had happened that just happens on Earth, that is just natural things, are in reality not natural, apparently. Are the results of like failed missions or something. Which is really interesting to think about in terms of how this all could work. Because this definitely implies some very interesting lore. And I'm very curious to find out where all that goes. Though, I don't know if we're going to get that in this season. I don't know if there's enough episodes to cover everything here. I mean, maybe, but... But yeah, it seems like right now, the number 1 spot, she's not bad, but she's very tough. And she even tells Fuko, if you want to do things a different way, then you have to take this spot. And the only way you can do so is by doing more work than me, getting more points. That is the only way for you to take the number 1 spot. And it seems like based on that, like the rankings are based on their actual, work and abilities, not just randomly given to them. Which I do prefer that. I just always prefer when character rankings like this aren't just like randomly assigned. Which happens more often than you might think. But like when they're actually like relevant to each other's abilities. And again, the work they put in to get those rankings. So I'm definitely interested to see how Fuko and Andy rise in the rankings, because that's clearly going to be a thing here. But also, they're talking about taking on this mission that could give them an 11th seat on the round table, which is really interesting. Because an 11th seat would change the dynamic of things. It would give them another person to be able to handle missions. That's really fascinating to me. I wonder how they would choose that. Like, they obviously get the seat, but how would they choose who's going to get it at that point? Do they all have to agree? It seems like whoever's in the number 1 spot is just in charge, so right now she gets the final say. And she listened to Shen. She took his recommendation. That's why Andy and Fuko are allowed to be there. She allowed that to happen. So I'm really curious as to if like someone else made the recommendation. What if multiple people made recommendations? I assume she'd just choose. I don't know. Maybe it'll touch on that. But while we're at the Union, we get to experience another UMA pretty quickly, as we're introduced to this person who takes on the appearance of clothes and can take over a person's body by turning into clothes and forcing them to wear them. The clothes they turn into are whatever they want to wear. In the case of Mui, the clothes weren't very different because she was already in the clothes that she wanted to wear. It definitely has some connection to Shen for obvious reasons. But when going on to Andy, the clothes were having trouble like adhering to his desires because his desires were very greedy, I guess you could say. He wanted very specific clothes and very, like, you know, useful and strong clothes. So it did seem to work in the end, though. Even with the unluck that ended up coming in from Fuko's touch there, it's like the clothes were able to regenerate themselves along with Andy, which is what he wanted. Though the clothes also now has, like, they have a mind of their own, and so it's like, I guess they're just gonna stick with Andy for now. They don't seem to be taking control, which is interesting. Which I guess means Andy isn't getting charmed enough by them. I guess that's kind of how it works. Can the clothes leave Andy on their own? I'm Clothy. Let's say Clothy, because that's the name Fuko gave them. Can Clothy leave Andy on their own? Or can it only happen if Andy is knocked out? Because if Clothy cannot leave Andy unless he's knocked out, that's really interesting. We know when the host body is knocked out, Clothy will automatically leave and latch on to the next person with a preference for women. Which, by the way, if that means we're going to have, like, this pervy side character, it's like, really? But it didn't really seem to go in that direction here, at least. It just seemed like just a preference for women, I guess. Which, mind you, considering this is a sentient person who just is in the form of clothes, that's kind of implied. But I like that it's not, like, really shown, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how they really utilize this. Either way, Andy's taken on the most difficult of the missions. And it's a 3-person mission, interestingly enough. Even though it's the most difficult, for some reason it's only 3-person. And so, of course, Andy requests that it's him, Fuko, and, you know, Shen. So they're going to go off on the mission and do their thing, and yeah. And it seems like this UMA has something to do with, like, zombies, because they were talking about, like, a corpse walking around the city. I'm very curious to see how this goes. I definitely want to see more of the rest of the round table in action, because it looked like in the opening, number 1, she had a sword, I think. And it shows the others, like, jumping around and, like, being in, like, action positions, but I couldn't really tell what they were doing. I would have to actually, like, really pay attention to all of them and probably, you know, rewind and pause, and I'm not going to do that. I want to I want to experience this as naturally as possible, and that means I don't want to have to go back and really analyze the opening. I just watch it as I watch it, and if I catch something, I catch something. But I'm not going to, like, analyze it to try and find things. No. Yeah, this should be interesting, though. This definitely has changed the dynamic of the show a little bit. But it's going in a really good direction that I'm really enjoying. I like the depths of these characters, and I really can't wait to see them explored. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Undead Unluck? And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.